I'm here today representing a team of artists and technologists and filmmakers that worked together on a remarkable film project for the last 4 years. And along the way, they created a breakthrough in computer visualization. So I want to show you a clip of the film now. Hopefully it won't stutter. If we did our jobs well, you won't know that we were even involved.
I don't know how it's possible, but you seem to have more higher.
What if I told you that I wasn't getting older, but I was getting younger than everybody else? I was born with some form of disease.
What kind of disease?
I was born old.
I'm sorry.
No need to be. There's nothing wrong with old age.
Are you sick?
I heard Mama and Tizzy whisper, and they said I was gonna die soon, but maybe not.
You're different than anybody I've ever met.
There were many changes. Some you could see, some you couldn't. Hair had started growing in all sorts of places, along with other things. I felt pretty good, considering.
That was a clip from The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. Many of you, maybe you've seen it or you've heard of the story. But what you might not know is that for nearly the first hour of the film, the main character, Benjamin Button, who's played by Brad Pitt, is completely computer generated from the neck up. Now, there's no use of prosthetic makeup or photography of Brad superimposed over another actor's body. We've created a completely digital human head. So I'd like to start with a little bit of history on the project. This is based on an F. Scott Fitzgerald short story. It's about a man who's born old and lives his life in reverse. Now, this movie's floated around Hollywood for well over half a century. We first got involved with the project in the early 90s with Ron Howard as the director. We took a lot of meetings and we seriously considered it. And at the time, we had to throw in the towel. It was deemed impossible. It was beyond the technology of the day to depict a man aging and backwards. The human form, and particularly the human head, has been considered the holy grail of our industry. The project came back to us about a decade later, and this time with a director named David Fincher. Now, Fincher is an interesting guy. David is fearless of technology, and he is absolutely tenacious, and David won't take no. And David believed, like we do in the visual effects industry, that anything is possible, as long as you have enough time, resources, and, of course, money. And so David had an interesting take on the film, and he threw a challenge at us. He wanted the film to be, or the main character of the film, to be played from the cradle to the grave by one actor. It happened to be this guy. We went through a process of elimination and a process of discovery with David, and we ruled out, of course, swapping actors. That was one idea, that we would have different actors and we would hand off from actor to actor, and we even ruled out the idea of using makeup. We realized that prosthetic makeup just wouldn't hold up. Particularly in close-up. And makeup is an additive process. You have to build the face up. And David wanted to carve deeply into Brad's face to bring the aging to this character. He needed to be a very sympathetic character. So we decided to cast a series of little people that would play the different bodies of Benjamin at different increments of his life, and that we would, in fact, create a computer-generated version of Brad's head, aged to appear as Benjamin, and attach that to the body of the real actor. Sounded great. Of course, this was the holy grail of our industry. And the fact that this guy is a global icon didn't help either, because I'm sure if any of you ever stand in line at the grocery store, you know, we see his face constantly. So there really was no tolerable margin of error. Commissioned us to do a screen test of Benjamin, and we did it in about 5 weeks. But we used lots of cheats and shortcuts. We basically put something together to get through the meeting. And I'll roll that for you now. This was the first test for Benjamin Button. And in here you can see that's a computer-generated head. It's pretty good, attached to the body of another actor. And it worked. And it gave the studio great relief. After many years of starts and stops on this project and making that tough decision, they finally decided to greenlight the movie. And I can remember actually when I got the phone call to congratulate us that the movie was a go, I actually threw up. You know, this is some tough stuff. So we started to have early team meetings, and we got everybody together, and it was really more like therapy in the beginning. convincing each other and reassuring each other that we could actually undertake this. We had to hold up an hour of a movie with a character, and it's not a special effects film. It has to be a man. We really felt like we were in a kind of like a 12-step program. And of course, you know, the first step is admit you've got a problem. So we had a big problem. We didn't know how we were going to do this. But we did know one thing. Being from the visual effects industry, we, with David, believed that we now had enough time, enough resources, and God, we hoped we had enough money. And we had enough passion to will the processes and technology into existence. So when you're faced with something like that, of course, you've got to break it down. You take the big problem, you break it down into smaller pieces, and you can start to attack that. So we had three main areas that we had to focus on. We needed to make Brad look a lot older. We needed to age him 45 years or so. And we also needed to make sure that we could take Brad's idiosyncrasies, his little tics, the little subtleties that make him who he is, and have that translate through our process so that it appears in Benjamin on the screen. And we also needed to create a character that could hold up under really all conditions. He needed to be able to walk in broad daylight, at nighttime, under candlelight. He had to hold an extreme close-up. He had to deliver dialogue. He had to be able to run. He had to be able to sweat. He had to be able to take a bath, to cry. He even had to throw up. Not all at the same time, but he had to, you know, do all of those things. And the work had to hold up for almost the first hour of the movie. We did about 325 shots. So we needed a system that would allow Benjamin to be able to do everything a human being can do. And we realized that there was a giant chasm between the state of the art of technology in about 2004 and where we needed it to be. So we focused on motion capture. Now, I'm sure many of you have seen motion capture, and the state of the art at the time was something called marker-based motion capture. I'll show you an example here. It's basically the idea of you wear a leotard and they put some reflective markers on your body, and instead of using cameras, there's infrared sensors around a volume, and those infrared sensors track the three-dimensional position of those markers in real time. And then animators can take the data of the motion of those markers and apply them to a computer-generated character. So you can see the computer characters on the right are having the same complex motion as the dancers. So we also looked at numbers of other films at the time that were using facial marker tracking, and that's the idea of putting markers on the human face and doing the same process. And as you can see, it gives you a pretty crappy performance. That's not terribly compelling. And what we realized was that what we needed was the information, what was going on between the markers. We needed the subtleties of the skin. We needed to see skin moving over muscle, over bone. We needed creases and dimples and wrinkles and all of those things. So our first big revelation was to completely abort and walk away from the technology of the day, the status quo, the state of the art. And so we aborted using motion capture. And we were now well out of our comfort zone and in uncharted territory. So effectively, we created a digital puppet that Brad Pitt could operate with his own face. There were no animators necessary to come in and interpret behavior or enhance his performance. There was something we encountered, though, that we ended up kind of calling the digital Botox effect. So as things kind of went through this process, it did kind of Fincher would always say it sandblasts the edges off of the performance. And one thing that our process and the technology couldn't do is it couldn't understand intent, the intent of the actor. So it sees a smile as a smile. It doesn't recognize an ironic smile or a happy smile or a frustrated smile. So it did take humans to kind of push it one way or the other. But we ended up calling the entire process and all the technology emotion capture as opposed to just motion capture. So take another look.
Well, I heard Mom and Tizzy whisper and they said I was gonna die soon, but maybe not. Well, I heard Mom and Tizzy whisper and they said I was gonna die soon, but maybe not. Well, I heard Mom and Tizzy whisper and they said I was gonna die soon, but maybe not.
That's how to create a digital human in 18 minutes. Thank you. Just a couple of just quick factoids. It really took 155 people over 2 years, and we didn't even talk about 60 hairstyles and an all-digital haircut, but that is Benjamin. Thank you.
Incredible.